Amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
As most of us know, January is Board Recognition Month. And to that avail, we have our regular friends who love us so much, at least over the last 14 years I've been around, that they come to say thank you. And on that note, we are recognizing Delta Sigma Theta sorority. I don't have the name of the rep, but will you all stand so we can take a look at you?
All right, thank you so much. Good afternoon, Chairman Lance, board members, Superintendent Price, and cabinet members. First, let me ask the members of Georgetown Alumni Chapter of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated to stand as we make a brief presentation. And thank you for your dedicated service to the students, parents, and employees in Georgetown County School District. We believe that you are doing a phenomenal job, despite the adversities that you have and continue to face. Most of us have made entrances throughout the district, and we realize that your task, especially in these trying times, is not an easy one. But we commend you for staying the course. So our organization of college-educated women of diverse backgrounds will continue to support your shared vision for Georgetown County School District as we embrace an organization of sisterhood, scholarship, service, and social action. Today, we will share just some of the ways in which we are contributing to your vision. Each year, we award 8 academic and 4 needs-based scholarships to graduating seniors in our 4 high schools. So we are always asking principals and counselors to encourage and assist if necessary those students in completing the application in its entirety. Each year, we visit the 4 high schools and Howard Adult Center to conduct voter registration drives, thusly demonstrating our community service throughout Georgetown County. Last year, we distributed 250 backpacks loaded with school supplies to Georgetown County School District middle and high school students. Some of our Delta retirees volunteer in the schools. Some serve on the school's PTO, School Improvement Council, Booster Club, tutor to school-age children, and serve as mentors and student advocates. Last year, we assisted Mr. Mac Burgess and the McDonald Elementary School family with their Low Country food bag distribution, and we had a great time each time. Then there are 2 groups of young ladies whom we believe have promising futures. We work with them annually too. They are the Delta Academy, young ladies in the middle school, and Delta Gems, young ladies in the high school. Those ladies are learning a lot from professionals and about social media etiquette, reading books, they're creating vision boards, and that's just to name a few. So we just want you to know that we are here to support you 100%. And we thank you for everything that you do. Happy Board Appreciation Month. And so I'm going to ask the ladies of Delta Sigma Theta to grab the bins that we have brought and make sure that they come up and distribute a nice little gift to each one of you. And we know that y'all believe that safety is first. in all things. It's a priority. We believe that too. So after we have already distributed these gifts, we're going to take a safe route. They're probably going to leave you. Yeah, I want all of those deltas to go to work, and let's look out for these young ladies and gentlemen. I want y'all to know I am with one of the finest organizations in Georgetown County.
Yes, you are.
I love Delta Sigma Theta, and Delta Sigma Theta loves me, but of course we love each of you. So thank you for everything that you do. Superintendent, just pass them along.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you.
Wonderful.
Mr. Price, we want you to pass yours down to someone else, even if someone is missing, because we have a special gift for you, Mr. Price. You know why? Yours has something sweet. Yours, we wanted you to snicker because you may not get to laugh all the time, but we also wanted you to have some kisses because every now and then you need a little kiss. So thank you so much, and God bless each and every one of you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Awesome ladies. Awesome ladies. They do a lot. They go above and beyond.
Next group of individuals are Miss Jenny Haynes, principal at Walker Middle. So I suspect she must be the chosen guinea pig.
I was told congratulations or condolences, either one. But hello and happy Tuesday. I'm so excited to be here, and honor doesn't begin to cover it. School board members, Superintendent Mr. Price, and other district personnel and guests, thank you for having me tonight to present this gift of appreciation on behalf of all the principals around Georgetown County School District. John Maxwell states, "The measure of a leader is not the number of people who serve him, but by the number of people he serves." Your measure is great, and I am truly grateful for your leadership and service to our students, educators, and ultimately the entire Georgetown County community. To the school board members, I've enjoyed getting to see some of you as you live and work in our community. Ms. Ford, you answered the call whenever we called Helping Hands so that Walkmont Middle School could donate over 3,000 canned goods at Christmas time. Ms. Patty Hamill, I get to wave to you in the car rider line as you pick up your granddaughter every couple of days at Walkmont Middle School. And Mr. Walker, I get to see you on the field as my boys are running around as I try to wrangle them in. It is great to see that you are an integral part of the community, not only in living and working, but helping to make productive and responsible citizens for our community here for life. With all the time, stress, and effort, especially over the last few years, you are the unsung heroes, and I thank you so much for all that you do. This is just a small token of our appreciation presented to you on behalf of all the principals around the district. We thank you so much.
Thank you.
So much. I appreciate
Thank you,
it.
ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good to see you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Jenny.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Let's give our mighty warriors. Next, we have somebody up here, let's see. Oh, Mr. Price, Superintendent.
Thank you, Dr. Lance. School district leadership is incomplete without an invested, informed, and involved school board. And Georgetown County School District is so fortunate to have all school board members who check all of those boxes. You are tireless in your efforts, in your support, and in your research. You are invested in everything that happens throughout the borders of this county. No matter how big, no matter how small, you want it to be the best possible scenario and opportunity for every student, every employee, and every community member of Georgetown County. And so on behalf of the executive staff, we would like to present you with a token of appreciation for all that you do every day of the year to represent GCSD. At your side, you will see an embroidered GCSD umbrella, so that when you face the many storms that come with wearing a school board member's hat, you will be equipped to face those storms. So on behalf of the executive staff, we thank you for your unending support and commitment.
Thank you. Thank you.
Next, we have the public comments requests. And I'm having 2 cards here. And the first one we have is Ms. Nicole Isaiah. Her topic is school calendar and safety protocols. Ms. Isaiah.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for having me here today. My name is Nicole Isaiah. I have my master's degree in clinical psychology and my specialization in neuropsychology. I'm a mother of 2 children in the school district. I'd like to start by thanking you for respecting parental choice and following the science regarding masking in our schools. I saw a few items on the agenda that I wanted to address, the first being related to the school calendar, specifically the school start times. I'd like to request a healthier start time for the children. Children between the ages of 5 to 7 need 11 to 12 hours of sleep each night for optimal brain development. Children 7 to 13 need between 9 and 11 hours of sleep. Currently, the school start time is too early to accommodate that. For example, my children are in bed at 7:30, and I need to wake them up at 5:45 in the morning to get them to school and feed them a healthy breakfast. My 5-year-old's only getting 10 and a half hours of sleep each night when she needs 10 optimally. I wanted to bring this concern to your attention so that we may hopefully adjust it for next year to be in the best interest of the children. I also wanted to address the safe return to in-person instruction and continuity of the operations plan. I noticed that there are different rules for quarantine for the vaccinated and unvaccinated individuals, and I was curious why that would be, given the fact that the vaccinated individuals spread at the same rate as the unvaccinated. It seems like an arbitrary rule and not based in the recent scientific literature that shows that the viral loads between both populations are similar. I also was curious how many of the quarantine staff and students are ending up as actual infections. I thought that that would be an important percentage to note when making these policies. And I also wanted to note that the virus is getting weaker and weaker with each mutation. That's basic biology, and like Fauci said, it's going to turn into the seasonal cold or flu. So should be something we should learn to adapt and learn with. As a clinician and research scientist, I'm happy to research, consult, and offer suggestions for the school to put together a behavioral plan to help mitigate the spread of COVID and other illnesses. I don't want to be just somebody saying, do this, do this. I'm happy to help in any capacity that I can. By education, to help people support their immune systems, like eating healthier, maybe even adjusting what we offer at the schools, or install sinks in the classrooms to allow more frequent hand washing, which is more effective than hand sanitizer and better for our children and teachers and staff's skin. Also, we're seeing a 23% decline in children's performance on key cognitive tests between the years of 2019 and 2021. It's clear that face masks, social distancing, and quarantines are affecting our children's education and cognitive performance. So if we're going to continue to quarantine the healthy children, we need better support for more virtual classroom options for students who are out sick, or have designated remote options for each grade across the entire school district. This would allow quarantined children to have some education continuity. This is a complex problem, I understand, which requires a multimodal approach. And thank you so much for your time and everything that you do for our children. I appreciate it.
Next person up is,
Can't hear you.
next person up is Miss Patty Olsen.
Hello, everyone. My name is Patty Olsen, and I reside in Murrells Inlet. I have 3 sons. One son is in the public middle school. I just want to thank the board and Superintendent Price for your time tonight, and especially for all of your service and all your hard work. I would also like to thank the board for maintaining parental choice as it relates to masking in the schools. I know my son has indicated that the majority of students in his classes, roughly 75%, are presently unmasked. I'm so thankful that every parent has that choice for our children. We really appreciate it so much that you afford us this flexibility in decision-making, what's best for our children. I would also like to comment on the safe return to in-person instruction and continuity operations plan. Unfortunately, there appears to be different rules for vaccinated and unvaccinated individuals. Vaccinated and unvaccinated individuals both catch and spread the virus at approximately the same rate. Existing studies reveal that there is little to no difference between COVID vaccinated and unvaccinated in terms of becoming infected, harboring the virus, or transmitting it. As it relates to Omicron, 2 recent small but interesting preliminary studies show that 80% of Omicron cases were double vaccinated. The CDC has reported on the details for 43 cases of COVID-19 attributed to the Omicron variant. They found that 34 of the cases, or 79%, occurred in persons who completed the primary series of FDA-authorized COVID-19 vaccines greater than or equal to 14 days before symptom onset or receipt of a positive SARS-CoV-2 test results. Furthermore, we are basing this plan on the fact that masks work. As of very recently, Leanna Wen, medical analyst, has said cloth masks are not appropriate for this pandemic. It was not appropriate for Omicron, Delta, or Alpha, or any of the previous variants either, because we are dealing with something that is airborne. Additionally, Dr. Gottlieb, former FDA commissioner and Pfizer board member, has said cloth masks aren't going to provide a lot of protection. That's the bottom line. This is an airborne illness. We now understand that, and a cloth mask is not going to protect you from a virus that spreads through airborne transmission. We ask that you take these facts into consideration when finalizing your safe to return in-person instruction plan. Thank you for your time.
Next on the agenda. It's okay. Be patient with me and this microphone. It's not one of my favorite pieces of instrument. But next on the agenda, we have approval of the minutes. We trust that everybody has had an opportunity to review the agenda from last week. Not the agenda, the minutes from last week. So we would like to take a motion to approve the minutes as presented.
Mr. Chair, I move to approve the agenda as presented.
Time out. Minutes back. Mr. Cafaro, minutes.
Sir?
I jumped the minutes.
Okay. Point of personal privilege, please.
Sure. You know the minutes now. No, just take it. We're good. All right.
I move that our minutes from our last board meeting be approved.
Second.
It has been moved and properly seconded that the minutes be accepted as presented. All those in favor, let it know by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposers, none. Motion is passed. The minutes have been approved. Now we're down to adoption of the agenda. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda as presented?
Dr. Lance, I move to approve the agenda as presented.
Second.
It has been moved and probably second that the agenda be approved as presented. All those in favor?
Dr. Lance, yes, I move that we remove action items 4 and 5 from tonight's agenda and place them on the agenda for February the 15th as an information item.
Do I have a second?
Second.
It has been moved and probably second that the agenda be amended to omit action items 4 and 5. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None? The adoption has been adopted. Now we have Georgetown County School Board Ethical Principle Pledge. And it appears that that's my job. And here it goes. Each year, the South Carolina Boards Association asks board members from around the state to commit to fulfilling their roles in a fully informed and ethical, committed manner. Serving as a board member and representing the students, employees, and the families of Georgetown County is a role that we all take seriously and have a great deal of pride. As a part of renewed commitment, we will participate in the signing of the 2022 Ethical Principle poster that we will gladly display in the boardroom throughout the year. Okay, come on, go down here.
We're good, thank you.
That candy now.
Oh, thank you, sir. Okay, moving along. First action item, we have the personnel list, Ms. Milton and Mr. Jenkins.
There's no need to address the board unless there's any.
Okay, all right. The administration recommends approval of the personnel list as presented. Do you have a motion?
So moved?
Second.
It has been moved and properly second that the administration accept the personnel list as presented. All those in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposers, none. Ayes have it. Motion carried. Now we have action item 2. Policy BCE, board committees. This is being handled by Ms. Lindsay Ann Thompson.
Good evening, Chairman Lance, members of the board, Mr. Price. I have 2 second reading policies to bring before you tonight. The first one is policy BCE regarding board committees. And this policy change came out of your work session that you had back before the holiday break. And in that session, you all indicated that you no longer wanted to have a policy saying that we would have standing committees. So our policy would now read, there will be no standing committees of the board, so that all board members receive the same information at the same time and can make decisions together. And then we struck the information about we must have standing committees. So that's the change for BCE as for second reading.
You can move on.
I'm sorry?
Get the vote.
Do you have any questions?
You have to.
Sorry.
Well, never mind. The administration recommends the approval of second and final reading regarding approval of policy BCE board committees. Do you have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
It's been moved and properly second that we accept the administration recommendation, second and final reading of policy BCE board committees. Those in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposers, none. Motion's carried. Policy BCE, board committees.
Thank you. The second policy is policy DDH, public participation in board meetings. And this one we brought to you to see if you had any changes that you wanted to make or any limitations that you wanted to put on public comment at the board meeting, and you all unanimously stated that you did not want to limit public comment in any way. The only limitation that you wanted to put on there was that everybody would need to complete a card before they may make a public comment, and that was for record-keeping purposes for us to make sure that we knew who was speaking. So those are the changes that we made. If there's any other changes, though, we could talk about that at this time.
Yeah, Dr. Lance.
Yes.
In the fourth paragraph, where it says, before I say anything, I'm very much in favor of public input, okay? I want to publicly say that. The fourth paragraph where it says, citizens wishing to address the board may do so at any regular board meeting. Now, is that going to restrict anything, or does regular mean the first and third Tuesdays of each month?
We meant for it to mean the first and third Tuesdays of the month, yes. But if you feel that that's unclear and that we need to strike the word regular so that it just reads may do so at any board meeting, we could do that tonight, and you could make it an amendment to the policy as it's written if you so chose, if you felt that would be clearer.
I see the problem if you put any board meeting, we would, if we had a special called meeting to handle an emergency situation, would we allow public comment during that if we said any board meeting?
And I think perhaps it comes down to what are we going to call the meetings on the first and the third? Is the name for the meeting, the first meeting, going to be a regular board meeting? And I hate to ask a question as I'm presenting, but perhaps Mr. Price could clarify that for us.
Yeah, the first one will be a regular board meeting.
That will be the title.
second one will be the board's work session. So if you added before any regular board meeting or board work session,
We could do that, or we could do regularly scheduled board meeting.
I think regularly scheduled captures the essence of the intent.
Okay.
And what we're trying to do is the regularly scheduled board meetings, the first and third board meeting of the month.
And just as another option for discussion, for the situation that Mr. Gaskins presented, if you, and I think probably the regularly scheduled is a cleaner way to do it, but the other option would be that if you struck the word regular from the policy entirely and didn't change it to regularly scheduled, if you had a special called board meeting that you didn't want to allow public comment, you could set aside the public participation policy for that meeting. It's a little bit of a bumpier path, but it's another option to throw out there.
I like regularly scheduled
Okay?
board meeting. Thank you for bringing that up, Mike.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Fair.
Sure.
So we can make that amendment as long as when the person who makes the motion to approve the policy does not say policy DDH as presented, but says policy BDDH with the amendment to change regular to regularly scheduled.
I make the motion that we approve this with using the new terminology.
Yes, sir.
Okay, does that work?
I believe
Okay.
so.
I second that motion.
It has been moved and probably second that board participation in board meetings be amended to include the new terminology. And the administration recommend such an amendment. Do I have a motion?
Already had the motion.
We already have the
I
motion.
had a second too?
Yep.
Oh, the second.
We can call for the
I missed
vote.
that, trying to call. In either case, it has been moved and probably second that we accept the amended motion. All those in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposes, none, ayes have it. Motion is carried.
Thank you.
The amended policy has been accepted.
Thank you. And so when I submit this for publication on our website, it will now read the fourth paragraph. The first sentence will read, "Citizens wishing to address the board may do so at any regularly scheduled board meeting." Okay, thank you.
Going to item 6.
I got you. Moving to action item 6.
Good evening, Chairman Nance, Mr. Price, members of the board. Pleasure to be here tonight to request approval of critical systems engineering for engineering services for the last part of the building program. This is primarily for 9 fire alarm systems in the remaining facilities that don't have updated fire alarm systems. We sent an RFP out. We received 6 responses back. The selection committee narrowed that down to 3 firms. We interviewed all 3 of those firms and ultimately selected critical systems engineering for this work. They've done numerous projects already in the district. They've done Carvers Bay High School, Carvers Bay Middle School, Pleasant Hill Elementary, Andrews Elementary, Maryville Elementary, Howard Adult Center, and facilities. So they have a lot of work experience here, and we've been very satisfied with the work so far. Is there any other questions?
The administration recommends the approval of a contract award for electrical engineering services to Critical System Engineering from Mount Pleasant, South Carolina. The initial project supported by this award will be replacement of school fire alarm systems as funded by the 2016 bond referendum funds. Critical System Engineering is deemed to be the highest ranked offer by a district review panel. Furthermore, the board authorizes the superintendent to execute the contract on behalf of the board. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Second. It has been moved and second that we accept the administration recommendation as presented. All those in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, none. Ayes have it. Motion's carried. Action item 7.
Okay, the second item is an approval of GMP to MB-Con for improvements to the visitor bleachers at Waccamaw High School and Georgetown High School. The contract with MB-Con does allow us to hold contracts for the districts, and we're acting as the same thing as the construction management firms did before. This is a much narrower scope of work, so it'll be handled under us. And under that GMP, there's no fee for MB-Con, there's no general conditions. It's just the bond and the general liability insurance, which is standard. All our services is carried forth in our regular contract. We're just handling the contracts on this. And in this particular phase, this is part of the athletic fields update that we're working on. And this includes replacement of the bleachers, of the visiting bleachers at Waccamaw High School. Those are older bleachers. They're on the ground, and the intent was really originally to put concrete pad underneath them to get them better support, but those are older bleachers. So we've advocated replacing those. They'll be raised up off the ground. They'll be handicap accessible and be much more improved than what they have. Over at Georgetown High School, we're adding just a concrete pad under those bleachers so they'll have better support. That involves disassembling the bleachers, pouring the concrete pad, and then reassembling. In our past projects there, we've added handicap access to bleachers already there. We've also run sidewalks out there. So a lot of that work's already been done at Georgetown. And if I can go back to Waccamaw, we're also adding sidewalk from the concession stand all the way over to the visitor bleacher. That's some 550 feet of sidewalk that we're adding on Waccamaw High School as well. So that's the scope of the work on there. And again, we'll be holding the contracts for that.
So you'll be taking out the whole visitor side of the football field at Waccamaw and replacing it with totally new bleachers, right?
That's correct.
And didn't we add some additional to the home side?
We did on the original project. We did add bleachers to the home side in the project we did in 2019.
So the visitor side will go back with the same amount that you already have there?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thanks.
The administration recommends approval of a contract for construction management services utilizing a guaranteed maximum price contract method for bleachers project as defined in the attachment and as associated with the bond referendum to MB-Con Construction, Incorporated from Columbia, South Carolina. Furthermore, the board authorizes the superintendent to execute the contract amendment on behalf of the board. The project will be funded through savings secured from the bond program.
I move.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Second.
All right. He's just kind of fast on the gun. It has been moved, and probably second, that we accept the approval of a contract award for construction management company services for the bleachers. All those in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
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 Opposed, as none. Ayes have it. Motion is carried.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bob. They call you Mr. Bob, so I call you Mr. Bob. Final action item. Act 207, diploma petition. Ms. Gina Smith.
Good evening, Chairman Lance, Superintendent Price, board members, and guests. We're here this evening to ask for approval for a former student from Waccamaw High School, 2004 graduate, who's requesting their diploma based on Act 207. Are there any questions?
Yeah, I have some.
Yes, sir.
Could you just refresh my memory and the public's memory of what that act
Okay, all right.
Encompasses, please.
Okay, let me dig deep here. So back in, I think it was in 1990, students were required to not only complete the 24 credits, so the credits that were required for graduation, but also there was a HSAP test that was actually required in order to receive your diploma. If you didn't pass the assessment along with the credits, then you received your certificate. So beginning with class of 2015, if I'm correct, that's when they, I guess, after some strong consideration, decided not to make the assessment required in order for you to receive a diploma. So now we have students that are now, I guess, seeking employment where an actual high school diploma is needed. And so that's where we are at this moment. I hope I explained that correctly.
You did, and you did a very good job. And the reason why I'm asking,
Yes, sir.
because how important this is.
Absolutely.
Because I totally immersed myself when I was the principal at Georgetown High School. And when we received those results,
Yes,
and I
sir.
want everybody to understand this, 200 was passing. That was the score at that time, 200. I cannot tell you how many 199s that happened, 199, and made a difference between getting a bona fide diploma and getting, like you just said, a certificate of attendance. And that's why whoever came up with that act showed a great deal of courage and smarts, because that really would affect many, many students in the course of their lives. Thank you so much.
You're
Thank
welcome,
you.
sir. Thank you.
The administration recommends approval to the award of South Carolina High School diploma based on Act 207 for students who have completed the requirements. Those in favor, let me know. Take the motion.
So move.
Second.
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 Second, all right. I'm not sleeping on you now, just trying to get the brains warm up. You have heard the motion as it is presented. All those in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed is none. Ayes have it. Motion is carried. Thank you, Ms. Smith.
Thank you, sir.
Now we come to the almighty information items. Beginning with information item 1, Ms. Waite, Ms. Shalise Waits.
Good evening, Chairman Lance, members of the board, Mr. Price, district staff, and guests. After meetings and discussions, the calendar committee recommends that the provided calendars be presented to you for consideration. The calendar has been presented in cabinet and at a joint leadership meeting. It is being brought to you this evening for discussion, after which it will be presented to all employees and the public for comments and feedback with your approval. The calendar committee's initial goal was to create and introduce a calendar that would allow the first semester to end prior to the winter break and the school year ending before Memorial Day. This would result in teachers and students returning a little earlier. After further discussion, the committee agreed to work towards a modified year-round calendar, which would consist of breaks of at least 1 week per quarter. In an effort to gradually move to a modified year-round calendar, the committee agreed that a bridge calendar for the 2022-23 school year would be the best, and the modified year-round calendar would begin during the 23-24 school year. If you would look at the calendars that you have, we'll briefly go through. The bridge calendar, teachers will begin on August the 1st. Students will begin on August 8th. There would be unbalanced semesters, where the first semester would have 88 days, first 9 weeks ending on October the 7th, second 9 weeks, and the end of the first semester would be December 16th. Second semester would have 92 days. for giving us a total of 180 days for that year. First 9 weeks would end on March 17th. Second 9 weeks and the end of the second semester would be May 25th. As we look at the modified year calendar, teachers will begin on July 26th. Students will begin on August the 2nd. Each semester will consist of 90 days. The first 9 weeks would end on October the 4th. Second 9 weeks and the end of the first semester would be December 21st. Second semester, the first 9 weeks would end on March 14th. Second 9 weeks would end on May 24th. Although the modified year-round calendar is not a traditional calendar, it will still allow for an 8-week summer break. And this seems to be the push for many school districts, as many of our surrounding districts have already adopted this. Any questions?
I like that, the whole week of Thanksgiving off. Well noted, because people have asked for that. And I know surrounding districts are doing that now, the whole week of Thanksgiving. And I like the idea the semester ends in December. Then instead of chopping up that time period between time our students come back and the second semester ends.
Right.
Good job.
Anybody else? Thank you, Ms. Waits.
Thank you.
At what point will this come back to us for a vote?
So with your approval, after tonight, the calendar will be sent out for district employee feedback as well as public feedback. And we will hopefully present it again for approval on the 1st, at the first meeting on the 1st.
In February.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Second information item, Engage SC and Tutor.com update. Mr. Almonte.
Good evening, Chairman Lance, Mr. Price, board members and guests, and fellow district employees. Engage SC is Graduation Alliance, or Engage SC is an academic success coach who meet with students and provide individual support plans to making them successful within the school environment. They are working on setting and growing foundation and fundamental skills. These fundamental skills also include feeling empowered and comfortable in the classroom so they are more comfortable and more successful. Engage is being paid by the State Department. There's no district funds being used for this project. As of April 22, we had 412 total participants. 200 students and parents that have re-enrolled from last year, and 125 new participants. We have 58 parents and students that have opted out of the outreach program. Most students were in the grades 9 through 11 with 176 students. Then in 6 through 8, we had 119 students. In K through 5, we had 105 students. So 121 of these students, of the 412, were in level 1 participation. Level 1, they basically had parental support and they were likely engaged in class and connected with teachers, but needed a little extra support. Students were given a number to call if they needed support outside the academic coach's work hours, and the coaches would periodically check in with the students to see how they are doing and what kind of barriers they are seeing. We had 100 students of the 412 that were level 2 students. These students required moderate intervention. A text with a phone call would occur twice a week. Students can schedule meetings directly on the coach's calendar if needed. So if the student wanted to talk to a coach right away, they could go onto the coach's calendar and request a call, and they would get a call back. Now, the majority of our students, of the 412 students, are on level 3 support. That's 190 students that are on level 3. And we also had one student that wasn't placed. I don't want you guys to think my math was wrong. Level 3, these required moderate intervention. They're contacted at least 3 times per week. Zoom is offered based on preference and family availability. All students will receive a continuous learning plan that is updated regularly. Now, this past week, I've been in touch with Engage SC Graduation Alliance, and we can add new students after the end of this semester. So any student that has a failure in middle or in high school or is at risk of failing, it wasn't on a previous list, I'm going to send up to Engage SC. I've also been working with Graduation Alliance for access to their data, and I've been given some SQL access so I can actually drill down and get these numbers. In the past, we were just given numbers from Engage SC, and we didn't have any names to go with those numbers. Now I'll be able to drill down and find out the students that had opted out, who are doing well in the program or not doing well. As I'm talking to students and family that are having problems with attendance, I talk to them about the Engage SC to make sure they are signed up for Engage SC, and also another program called Tutor.com. Tutor.com is, access to Tutor.com is via Discus. The State Department has offered real-time tutoring to all South Carolina residents on Tutor.com, and it's available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. It's used for English or Spanish speakers. The student connects with a tutor on various subjects, and they offer test prep assistance, skills coaching, and help with specific math and essay writing questions. Creating a Tutor.com account is optional and is not required to connect with Tutor. But everybody I spoke to, I encourage them to get a Discus account, so when you do get a tutor that the student connects well with, they can refer back to that tutor. And also, if you have an account, if you start an essay, you could send an essay up to Tutor.com, and they will actually send you back corrections to help you with your rough draft before you send it in to your teacher. Now, the problem with Tutor.com, we won't be able to track how well it works, but Engage SC, I think we will be, now that I have access to the data, I believe we will be able to see how it actually works. Do I have any questions?
That was, may I ask
Yes,
a question?
Ms. Ford?
That was going to be one of my questions about feedback. And would someone use Tutor.com or would they use, or the Graduation Alliance, or would they use both?
They would definitely use both. The SC Engage, or Engage SC, is more like a parent for a lot of kids, someone checking on them, making sure they're doing well. And one of the suggestions that Engage SC might suggest is to use Tutor.com or to do after-school tutoring. I've gotten reports both ways on Engage SC. I've heard good things about it, and I've heard bad things about it. And I believe it deals with the way the student responds to the coach and how the coach responds to the student.
Right. That program, I've heard a lot of feedback, well, some feedback from Engage SC, and it really, if the student is not motivated, some students are motivated when they have failing grades, others are not. And if a student is not motivated, then the Engage SC program is not for them, because it's really up to the student to answer the text message or the phone call, and then to go an extra step. And because once they speak to a counselor or a tutor, from whatever they call it, from my understanding, then they have to go and click on a link to actually sign up. So there are a couple of steps that they have to take in order to get the help that they need. And that seems kind of counterintuitive to me.
And it is a little cumbersome, I will admit to that. But I think some of these students, just having someone, knowing that someone else cares, helps.
If I may add to that, Mr. Almonte, to your point, Ms. Ford, you make a great connection there. It is not the only resource that is afforded to students who are struggling. It is an extra resource.
Exactly.
And that's why it's optional and not required. And so if a student is struggling and they would like to have an accountability coach or a liaison that they can talk to, say, hey, I'm struggling with my geography class, and they say, well, you want me to reach out to your teacher to try to set up some tutoring? They could say yes or no, or say, hey, you could also use tutor.com to see if that works better, if you think that may more fit your style. But you're absolutely right. If the student doesn't engage with the coach, it's not going to be effective. And typically, this resource is targeted to students who are not being successful currently. So it would really necessitate a student who is not finding success, but who is driven to turn that around. Right. And if they are and they connect with their coach, then it could have a positive outcome. Otherwise, not so much.
And tutor.com is relatively new. The state brought that to us in December. Well, actually, it was, I think it was the day before we went on Christmas break. It was when they announced it. So it is relatively new. I've gone on myself and asked questions just to try it out, and I got answers right back. Like I said, I went on there and just asked a math question, and they helped me out with it. They didn't actually give me an answer, but they told me how to figure it out, which helped. And the other part of the tutor.com is the test prep, which normally is a pay, you usually have to pay for it, for SAT prep or ACT prep. I would suggest every high school student get on there and at least use it and learn how to take tests, because a lot of it is the science of taking a test. It's not, they have the knowledge, they just can't get it down onto the paper.
Right. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other questions?
I have two questions.
Sure.
One, I think you've answered this, but clarification. How do we get our kids, is the district going about getting kids enrolled with an academic success coach? Is that through you?
Yes, sir. Well, okay, there's actually 3 ways to do it. You could actually call.
So the student could initiate
actually,
it, or the parent?
The student can initiate it, the parent can initiate it. Our group, we took a group of kids who failed classes, ESOL students, kids who had any failing grades last year in middle school, and our reading, summer reading from last year is who we put in, because we had to have groups to send to them. Like I said, I have gotten permission to send some more people in, where last year we sent them in one time, and that's the only time we had a chance. This time, I'm going to go through, look at all the kids that have a failing grade now or have failed a grade in the high school, and send that group up to them, excluding the ones that have already been sent to before. And then what I'm going to do is I want to look at the 68 who opted out and see if they understood what it was, give them a little more information, and hopefully that will encourage more people to use it and it'll work better.
The second question deals with Tutor.com. How are we communicating this with students, parents, teachers, everybody to try to get this out?
That is new. They have handouts. I have some handouts. Like I said, when I bring people in to talk to them about truancy and absenteeism, I give them both I hand them both of them. The schools at I believe it's the guidance counselors are using that, but that's right. We probably do need to push it more to some of the teachers so the teachers could.
So, yeah, I see Tutor.com as an excellent resource.
Yes, exactly. We do. I will check with the others here about, because, we do have our afternoon tutoring that we've been doing. We've been doing the tutoring during lunch and before school, and maybe make sure that these handouts are there so the teachers can hand them out there too. That'd be a good idea.
Another good place is sharing this through our social media.
And it was sent out at one time. It was put there before, but like I said, it came in between semesters, basically, Christmas break, so it probably would be a good idea to send it again so everybody does see it.
And we have promoted it on social media, and Mr. Almonte is trying to focus his efforts with those students who come to him for truancy issues. And Dr. Giles and her team have been working to push that out to all students at all schools.
Excellent.
Okay. Anybody else? I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Information item number 3. Dr. Hamill.
Good evening, Chairman Lance, members of the board, Mr. Price, district staff, and guests. Tonight, I'm pleased to share with you an overview of high-impact tutoring at the middle and high school levels, looking at overall numbers as well as the pass rate for students who regularly attended these sessions. Additionally, this evening, I've shared with you a comparison of the overall pass rate for first quarter in our district during the past 2 school years at the secondary level. And finally tonight, 2 of our high school principals will introduce to you 2 distinct versions of a very promising practice that they've been piloting in their high school's first semester. As you'll see as you look at these schools' results, their faculties have bought into this, what we refer to as during school or in school remediation and enrichment, and the students are greatly benefiting from its beginning implementation. I'm going to begin tonight. Let's look at high-impact tutoring. Just a brief review for the board. High-impact tutoring is taking place in 7 of our middle and high schools. They come all 4 core subject areas. I have a sample schedule up there. It's done at each school, but 1 day for ELA, 1 day for social studies, 1 day for math, and 1 day for science. Tutoring takes place an hour in the afternoon, Monday through Thursday, and is supported by 1 subject area teacher for every 5 to 10 students that are signed up to attend. Now, they are supported in small groups and individually based on their current needs, and teachers in the department share the responsibility with the tutoring. At the high school level, initially all 4 high schools began with after-school high-impact tutoring. However, the 337 students that you see here on the screen come from 3 of our high schools. Andrews High School moved their tutoring to in-school as part of their Hive Time implementation, which Ms. Mahone will share with you shortly. You see the results on the screen. This is voluntary, and as you see at the high school level, a lot more what I would call sporadic. 10% of our students attended 2 or more days a week. Now, at high school, that's not surprising. Students go as needed on an as-needed basis. The 10% that attended During the 10-week period, you will see 100% of those students passed all their classes and on average raised their overall grade from the beginning of the year 10 to 15 points. And at the high school level, schools anticipate that going up slightly or staying around the same second semester based on the interest and needs of the students. When we move over to the middle school, you'll see a little bit lower number. 163 students participated in at least one session during the 10 weeks, but you'll also see this was a lot more frequent and intentional by those students. 48% of the students attended regularly 3 or more days a week. And you know, that's not really surprising either, because at the elementary and middle school level, parents will use that program, and that's fine for us because we get a chance to tutor those students as an after-school option for those students. Here you will see out of that 48% of the students, so approximately 78 to 80, 90% of these students passed all classes during first semester. Interestingly, the other 10% failed one class, and they raised their average by 8 to 10 points. I will tell you, at 2 of our 4 sites, Rosemary and Carvers Bay, their administrators said they expect that to grow significantly in the spring. Carvers Bay's numbers have continued to grow, while the other 2 programs expect slight growth or about the same. I'm going to turn this over to Ms. Kibler so I can share with you, in addition to the specific data for students attending high-impact tutoring, I also prepared for you a comparison of the failure rates between first quarter last year and this year. Now, while all our schools you'll see made positive gains in their overall failure rate, 2 of our high schools significantly lowered their failure rate while piloting 2 distinct versions of an in-school remediation and acceleration model that provides students with additional learning opportunities in subject areas during the regular school day. And at this time, I'm going to ask Mr. Adam George and Ms. Tashanka Mahone to come forward and share with you briefly how their implementation of Smart Lunch and Hive Time have positively impacted students, not only in academic achievement, but their overall social and emotional growth as well. So I'll turn it over to them.
Thank you, Dr. Hamill. Good evening, Dr. Lance, members of the board, Mr. Price. Just a quick overview of what we're doing at Waccamaw High School, and Ms. Mahone and I are doing similar things but different. So the idea of Smart Lunch and Hive Time remediation all grew from our MTSS, our implementation of the multi-tiered system of supports, and how do we get that into our daily routine at this high school level. So real briefly, I'd like to share with you a video that we showed our students at the beginning of the semester to kind of talk to them, or not talk to them, but give them an idea of what Smart Lunch was going to be like at Waccamaw High School. I'll show just a few minutes of this video.
So that was just a real quick video that we shared with our students that outlined the expectations of them during our Smart Lunch time. This was new to our staff. We spent a lot of time planning the previous school year so that we were prepared and ready for when this school year started with our Smart Lunch. And real briefly, what we do at Waccamaw High School, Smart Lunch is a 45-minute block of time during the day that we use for intervention or acceleration. It's allocated for every student. And every student meets each week with their 4 teachers, so they have 4 classes on the block schedule to make sure they are up to date with classwork. Teachers also have the discretion to keep students for extension activities as well. So it's not all remediation, it is also extension as well. And that's the schedule that we use right there on the right-hand side, where Monday our students meet with their first block teacher during this time, Tuesday, second block. Wednesday we have our homeroom time, our advisor-advisee time. Thursday, they meet with their third block teachers, Friday, fourth block teachers, and so on. Here's just a couple of quotes from teachers about how their Smart Lunch experience was during the first semester. First quote says, "Smart Lunch has been a sanctuary for some of my students. They like to have an extended lunch so they can get tutoring, extra time for assignments, and for some, just a quieter environment to eat lunch or study. Fall semester was the first time in 9 years of teaching that I had no students fail the quarter. The students enjoyed a part of their day reserved for clubs and activities. This prevented students from staying late after school or having to choose which clubs to attend because each day was reserved for a different club." The next one, "I have noticed that utilizing Smart Lunch this year has greatly reduced the number of students who are failing or doing poorly in class. In addition, I can help students struggling with specific concepts. This time during the day gives me a chance to work with them if needed during the school day so that they can tend to their responsibilities or activities after school. I'm so happy with how this has turned out so far this year and look forward to similar results in the spring semester." We have quite a number of our students, as does every high school, that have students that participate in extracurricular activities after school, whether it be athletics or work or whatever it may be. So being able to carve out this time during the school day has been very, very, very beneficial. This is just an example of what our our schedule looks like for this semester. Very similar to what you would have seen in the video. But the number of clubs that we have that our teachers have sponsored during the day, it rotates based upon their planning period. We have intramurals, we have mental health clubs, student council, key club, drama. Those are just a few of the clubs that we highlight, that I highlight here, that we do and meet, weekly with those students during our Smart Lunch time. I think that's it for me. I'm gonna turn it over to Ms. Mahone.
So Andrews High School, we have, our time is called halftime, but it's actually a dedicated 35-minute block. It's not connected to our lunch, so the students don't have an option. They all must go. Now, the reason why we did ours like this is, as Dr. Hamill stated, we do not do high-impact tutoring. We decided to do all of our stuff during the school day between 7:30 to 3:30. That way, we remove any barriers and made it equitable for all students so that everyone has access to it. Similar to what Waccamaw does, all of our students have an assigned day that they go to their period. The only thing that's different is we moved our SEL and our advisory to Friday. So every Friday, we have an SEL advisory lesson. Our clubs are Monday through Thursday. All teachers have clubs, students sign up. But you're not allowed to go to your club if you have an average less than 70. You have to stay with your teacher. Also, we use halftime for additional things. For example, when we had students who were preparing for the ASVAB, they were pulled out of their regular halftime, and for 1 to 2 weeks, they did test prep for ASVAB. When we had to redo wind testing for some of our students first semester, they're removed from halftime. So we use halftime to do all of our additional instruction that our students wouldn't be able to have after school, but we also use it so that we're not interrupting their core instruction for their first through fourth block. So we make sure we protect their instructional time with their teachers. Now, one of the things that we focus on at Andrews High School is that if you're going to use halftime, we encourage our teachers to make sure that they are using it for true remediation. So we work with both our teachers and our students so that they know what to use halftime for. And these are the 6 takeaways that we use. We allow the students to retake. So this is a great time for error analysis. We provide tutoring, and sometimes this tutoring can be small group, sometimes this tutoring can be one-on-one, but it provides them another opportunity. It provides them a chance to review, to get organized. It also gives teachers a chance to differentiate their instruction. Maybe they taught something during first block and it didn't quite go the way they wanted to because certain students learn at a different level. That way they can come during halftime and reapproach it by a different way. And then it allows us to use more of our digital curriculum. The reason why Andrews High School brought into halftime is because it was able to cover all of the tiers in MTSS model. This whole group, like I said, all of our students have to go to it, so we know that all students have access. We're also able to target groups. For example, we're about to do special targeting for our kids who are in Foundations first semester who were not successful. We're going to use this time and dedicate it to them to help them be more successful with our interventionists, as well as it's also a tier 3 intervention for the one-on-one. We also like halftime because at Andrews we're able to use it not just for academics but also for behavior, because we have started certain support groups for our students, and we're able to use halftime. Again, we're not pulling them out of their instructional time, we're protecting their instructional time because we're using halftime for it. Thank you.
I understand it's a quick snapshot, but at this time, we'll answer any questions you may have.
Got it.
Oh, yes, sir.
Mr. George, on one of the slides, it said that if you had a zero, you could not participate in a club or something, right? How was that applied? I mean, is that a zero for, well, let me just ask the question, how is that applied?
Yes, sir. No, the zero is if they're missing an assignment, basically. So if they're missing an assignment, they have to stay for the dedicated 25 minutes of remediation, which is the smart lunch period. So if they're missing any assignment, then that student must stay with that teacher during that day, whatever day that may be, the first, second, or third, or fourth block day. Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. And part 2 is, and you don't have to be very specific on this, but have you gotten any flack, for lack of a better word, from sometimes parents? It's like I remember one school had a program where they recognized good behavior for 0 referrals, and then if somebody got a referral for a tardy, you know, they couldn't go, and it was World War III, you know, with the parent. Do you have any?
No, sir. I have not had any specific feedback negatively from a parent about what we're doing with Smart Lunch. Because we have it attached to lunch, it is a 45-minute block. We reserve the first 25 minutes for the remediation or acceleration. Although the teacher has discretion if they need the entire time, as long as the student has the ability to get lunch and eat lunch, which we allow them to eat in their classrooms as well if they need to, then that time is really the teacher's time to use with the students as they see fit.
Okay. All right. I had a similar question, if I may, Dr. Lance, if I can ask this question to Ms. Mahomes. On yours, it said, must have at least 70 in a class to attend the club. Could you elaborate on that a little bit too, please?
So our halftime is not attached to lunch. Ours is a dedicated 35 minutes separate from lunch. So if a student's average is below a 70 in that class, then they are to stay with the teacher and stay in the class. If their average is 70, if it's 70 or higher, then they can go to their clubs. We have clubs Monday through Thursday that the kids have selected to participate in, as well as most of our athletic programs also meet during halftime.
Okay, so it's 70 at that time?
Mm-hmm. It's 70 at that time because at any time you can check your Power School, and we encourage our students to stay, to check their Power School regularly so they know what they have.
Okay. Thank you. Appreciate
You're welcome.
before you sit down on that same. So there is a possibility that there may be some kids that never get an opportunity to participate. That is theoretically possible.
Correct. There is a possibility that there will be some kids that would not, but I'm going to say, but that shouldn't happen because that's where our MTSS model comes in. Because when we meet every week for MTSS, if we notice students who are failing regularly, that's where we would address it, as well as when our teachers do their reflections at the end of the 9 weeks, they also address what are they going to do one-on-one with those students to help them be successful. So we should never have a student who doesn't have the opportunity to participate unless they elect not to.
I would just like to say kudos for coming up with a creative program that seems to be working. I'm assuming, I saw the positive feedback that you had from your teachers, and I'm guessing the students are pretty excited at the ability to catch up on their work as well as participate in their clubs. So I really appreciate that.
Thank you all. We appreciate it.
Keep up the good work. And I like you don't use the word never. That's one of my terms, but now let's get the good news. Walters. Okay, Alan.
Thank you. Good evening, Chairman Lance, board members, Mr. Price. It's time for us to come back and give you an update on where we are with our safe return plan. And boy, do we have a lot to talk about because it has changed quite a bit since the last time we met. I've said in all seriousness now that I check the DHEC website twice a day before I go to bed and first thing when I get up because they have a tendency to pop things out in the nighttime and on the weekends, and we want to stay on top of it. And so what we're going to talk about some tonight is since school started back for January, DHEC has changed its guidance 3 times already. And so these are the major categories where the changes have taken place with vaccinations, isolations, how we utilize our staff, the definition of how we handle classrooms and cohorts. And of course, probably the big topic right now for everybody is at-home rapid testing. So we're going to go through each of those steps, and this is where we are as of right now. I can't guarantee it won't change before the meeting's over. So the first big change that happened, and this was somewhat problematic for us when it came out, was they changed the definition of vaccinations, split it into 2 categories. Fully vaccinated, which is the folks who've had their primary doses. That's either the 2 shots of Pfizer or Moderna, the 1 shot of the Janssen, and it's been 2 weeks since the last dose. But then they came up with maximally vaccinated. And basically what that is this fully vaccinated plus a booster, which I guess the thought process is that would encourage people to go out and get their boosters so they would qualify to be maximally vaccinated. We'll talk about what happened with that idea here shortly. So now isolation has also changed a couple of times. Now isolation, of course, you recall, is when someone tests positive for it. There's still a lot of confusion with folks between what's isolation and what's quarantine. And so isolation is 5 days since the onset of symptoms, no fever, asymptomatic, must wear a mask through day 10, and that is from DHEC. That word must being in bold print. The other piece that's been in for a while now is still there, students within 3 to 6 feet not having to quarantine if they're properly wearing a mask. That part is difficult for us to go back and contact trace, if you will. We do try to do that as best we can. All our classrooms have seating charts in them. And so we do have a lot of folks that avoid quarantine that way, but it is wearing a mask, and our mask wearing percentage varies from school to school. Some of them have decent numbers wearing masks, some have very few wearing masks. But again, that's a decision that families have to make. Now, maximally vaccinated, as we talked about before, the definitions of it. So now they came back and added who that applies to, because they found out that when the boosters became available for 12 and up, that those age groups weren't being able to go out and get it done. So that was creating a problem, and perhaps it wasn't even medically necessary that that be done. So they went back, they altered the guidance for that, and said to avoid, or to get into the quarantine situation, maximally vaccinated is for people over 18, but fully vaccinated, that's without the booster, is for 5 to 17, and then those who obviously have already been infected and provide the proof of that, don't have symptoms, have to wear a mask for 10 days, can get around the quarantine. So those were the exceptions that they put in there for it. Now, when they changed it to fully vaccinated for the students, that was a big boost for us in that so many of them had gone out and gotten vaccinated, but a lot of them weren't eligible for boosters yet. When Omicron came along in December, people went out and started getting the vaccinations, but the time hadn't passed for them to get the booster shots yet. So this is what the next slide here is, what we're talking about if they are not maximally or fully vaccinated. Here's a huge piece right here. No more testing required to return. They took out the word require and replaced it with recommend. If you recall, that's what they used when we got into the mask business back last summer, was taking out the require and mandate and changing to encourage and recommend. So they're using recommend now for that. Now, 10 days with no symptoms is still there, and the reason for that is, if you see the next one, 5 days no symptoms and must wear a mask, we have people who cannot wear masks. We have some special needs students, we have those with medical conditions, and so we consulted with DHEC about this, and there are no exceptions for that. So if they cannot wear a mask, they would have to do the full 10 days. So we try to put that in all of our communications out there too, so that while 5 days is an option, it may not be one that's available for everybody if they have certain conditions. Okay. Staff working while in quarantine. Now, recall too that with the incentive program that we ran, our employees have a pretty high vaccination rate in the 80+% range. So that's been very helpful for us. You'll see when we look at numbers here in a few minutes. But what they did with this one is they've gone back and added in crisis staffing situations that unvaccinated staff may, and the operative word here is may, be allowed to work during quarantine. That would be those first 5 days. But if they're asymptomatic, they do have to get a test on day 5 and wear a mask through day 10. So while we are aware that this change has taken place, it's not something that we've had to consider or implement at this point in time.
Mr. Walters?
Yes, sir.
If I may ask a question? Yes. I notice it says a well-fitting mask on this slide, but on the other slides, it just says a mask. So.
And they are not consistent in putting that on every definition. On one line on there, they actually say that they talk about KN95 masks are preferred and should be used if available. But a lot of this is where they're just going back and doing a lot of cutting and pasting, editing in there. So yeah, the terminology is not always fully consistent throughout. We actually go through these things and parse them line by line. It's pretty tedious to do that, but just like the points you made is why we do that. So this definition, if you remember the previous one, was 3 cases in a classroom or cohort over a 14-day period. Well, that number started getting hit pretty quickly all over the place. So they went back and looked, and they came up with this definition of the 20% more in a classroom or absent on the same day or sent home on the same day. That's the same standard we use for flu outbreaks. So that's something that everybody was already familiar with how it works, and it seemed to be consistent, something that could be applied in that manner. So that gave us actually a little more flexibility with that definition. And then the testing. They took out all the references to requiring and mandating testing, and now they are encouraging the use of the at-home test. Now, Dr. Traxler came to a meeting that I was at last week, and that was one of the questions I had. They said, you changed the definition about who had to have tests or not, and you put these test requirements in, this was in the previous one, at the same time the tests were totally unavailable. So you pretty much set an impossible standard. And so she kind of said then, wait and see what happens, and this is what happened a few days later. The other thing that came out is that most of the at-home test kits came with 2 tests. The form they provided for people to send in to say that their children had the test only had 1 test date on it. So I asked her, I said, are you saying that 1 test is acceptable? And she said it was. I said, so if somebody has a kit and it has 2 tests in it, and you have 2 children, you could give 2 children 1 test apiece and that'll still work. And she said it would. The other issue we've all seen is with a lot of the testing, though, especially if the kids have to be sent off, is that there's such a backlog of them now that people aren't getting results back until the end of what their quarantine period would have been anyway. So the big shift is to the at-home rapid testing. The federal government is making them available. That's the link to it right there. When I checked it last night, it was not open. When I checked it this afternoon, it is open. So I placed an order because I want to see what they're going to send us. I can tell you that I went to a couple of drugstores this weekend, and I saw more tests out. They have little individual kits now with 1 test in them, a single test kit. They're like $10, but they had them stacked up by the cash registers in the drugstores. So hopefully that will start to catch up. Now, Nurse McCall's not with us tonight, but we always give her a hats off for something because she's been a real hero throughout this process, she and all of the nurses. But this came up a while back. The CDC Foundation would provide grant funding to put staff in school districts to help support the nurses and try to take some of the burden with some of their other duties off of them so they could focus more on the medical side of it. And so we initially looked at 1, maybe 2 per attendance area. And she said, well, let's just go big and ask them, see if we can't get 1 for every school. So she put in the paperwork, and we're getting 1 for every school. So 8 of them began last week. Some others should be coming in this week, and then I think the next week or 2, we'll all get them phased in, get them trained, and that will run through this summer through July. And so they're able to take a lot of the burden off of our nurses, especially with contact tracing, with making contacts, and a lot of the paperwork that goes with this. So here's some of the numbers, and these numbers on each one of these charts go from the first day of school through last week, the last day that the students were here. You can see we were a little over 50 when we first came back, positive students. We're pushing 350 positive. And to give you some context, back in September, I know we all try not to think about September if we can help it, but back in September, the highest number we had prior to these numbers in January was a little over 100 students being positive. So we're 3 times that number now. So keep that number in mind when we look at the quarantine numbers here. So we came back a little under 200 over the last couple of weeks. We're up to about 1,200. At that same time period in September, we were at 2,600 students in quarantine. So the change in the guidelines, the vaccinations, the ones that wear masks, and these other things that have been put in place has made a difference on it. So while we've seen positive numbers go way up, quarantine numbers proportionally have not done that, thank goodness. Our staff numbers, you can see that number's a little, graph's a little flatter there. It's still a high number of the ones that are there. The next slide also, the ones that are in quarantine, you can see what those numbers are looking like too. And so, again, we're trying to work around these things. Now that the times are getting shorter, we're hoping to get them back sooner and get them back to work. What gets us into this situation with our temporary virtual is that when we have key numbers of people out, it may not sound like a large number, but it depends on what they do. So like Browns Ferry is a smaller school, so you may have a handful of people out if you look at it numerically, but if you look at the context of the size of that school, the number of students they have, it's a huge number. So in fact, today you'll see that we extended them for 1 more day so that their return date now is the 20th. And the reason for that being is we went back and calculated the return dates for students and staff to make sure we could match up that we'll also, that when the students come back, there's going to be enough staff there to work with them. Georgetown Middle and Andrews Elementary are scheduled to return next Monday. We will review that on Friday to make sure that that's still a feasible and safe thing to do. And we spend a lot of time all day long, every day, looking at the other schools, talking with the principals, with the nurses, monitoring numbers, and making sure that we can safely carry out school and also make sure that we're doing school while they're there. So that's a lot of information to throw at you in a short bit of time. I always like to end with this one. We used to start with it, but now it's a good reminder for us that our plan has to be flexible, has to be adaptive, and certainly it evolves. Be glad to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Mr. Walters.
Thank you.
Good day. Next information item, we have board and superintendent comments or requests. Anybody?
I do if no one else does. Thank you, Mr. Chair, and ladies and gentlemen of the board. Since our last meeting in December, we have been faced with the next wave of the impacts caused by COVID, this time called Omicron. While the symptoms do not seem to be as severe with this variant, the impact it is having on students and employees has been significantly impactful. Our teachers, administrators, nurses, and other staff members continue to do all they can to try and keep our schools open and functioning safely and effectively. We all remain hopeful that this surge will soon subside the same way that our wave did earlier this year. Please encourage our school employees every chance you get because they are doing incredible work right now. In addition, I have some good news to share. GCSD is the recipient of some more assistance in addition to our CDC workers. Mr. Alan Walters also submitted a grant application to the state of South Carolina, and we were approved for more school resource officers. As a result of our application, every school will have a full-time assigned SRO on its campus. Earlier this month, GCSD was surprised by the Georgetown Chamber of Commerce when we were named the January Business of the Month. We were recognized for our hard work and commitment to customer service during these challenging times. You may have noticed our banner out in the main hallway that we will be allowed to display for the remainder of the month. This is a tribute to all of the dedicated employees of our district who help make GCSD a great place to live, learn, and work. And of course, you know, hard work does pay off. On a more personal note, we learned last week that one of our own, Miss Myrtle Milton, has earned the title of doctor. Dr. Myrtle Milton. So please be sure to congratulate Dr. Milton on this significant accomplishment. Congratulations, Dr. Milton. And this is a reminder to all of our board members that our new meeting structure, as discussed at the board retreat on November 19th, will go into effect beginning in February, with the general meeting taking place the first meeting of the month and the work session taking place the second. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Anybody else?
Mr. Chair, I'm sorry, I do have a question. Being that you brought this up, Superintendent Price, the grant that Mr. Walters wrote, are the resource officers going to continue to be with the Sheriff's Department? Is that it?
We have, most of them are with the Sheriff's Office, and I believe we have one additional one that's coming from the city. Mr. Walters can clarify.
That's correct. So all the elementary schools will have one, but the city police will get one for Maryville, and then the sheriff's office will get the other 6 for the other schools. And I'd be remiss if I didn't say that the police department and the sheriff's office did the heavy load of the grant writing because they had to provide a lot of that information that goes into it. Another piece of good news that goes along with that grant as well, you remember we got 4 positions from the last grant we applied for last time for elementary schools. The way the program has been restructured now, they're going to go back and reimburse the county for the patrol cars and the equipment and the training and such, and these new positions will come fully funded with vehicles and uniforms and training and such. Because that was burdensome for a lot of agencies, is that if you gave them the person, they couldn't afford the wherewithal for all the stuff that goes with it. So when that grant program got changed, that was helpful, but certainly we had a good team effort to be able to get all of them like that. I don't know if anybody else around got all of their positions funded like that. So we're very excited about it.
Anybody else? The next item of interest is we have dearly beloved executive session tonight at 7:15. We would be entering into an executive session tonight to discuss legal advice regarding board vacancies and pending legal cases, both of which would be led by Attorney Lindsay Ann Thompson. So do I hear a motion to go into executive session?
So moved.
Second. It has been moved and properly second that we now retire for executive session. All those in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposers, nay. Ayes have it. We are now in executive session. Executive session, nothing new. So, the meeting is now adjourned.
Very good.